Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing and enlightening episode of Wealthish Talks. I'm your host, Rickdrieka Bennett, your marketing and business expert and strategist. And today I am thrilled to have a special guest with me. Today we're having a conversation with John Papaloni, the CEO of Just Ask John. John, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So, John, your role as a CEO of Just Ask John places you at the forefront of really providing innovative strategies for entrepreneurs. So, before we dive into that, can you share a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to become a business strategist and helping others to basically achieve their goals?
Yeah, a lot of it is evolution, right? I've been a serial entrepreneur and I've had many businesses. What I'm doing now is kind of similar to my past businesses. It's just more of a progression to what it was. Like I was
Mhm.
always in the marketing and advertising business, and then I sold that business. It was an 8-figure a year business when I sold it,
Okay.
and what ended up happening is afterwards I got into the real estate industry. I'm still in the real estate industry, and that's kind of what led to this. It's at some point in time you kind of just evolve and you change. Like
Mhm.
real estate is exciting in the beginning. You get to go into other people's houses and you get to see it. You get to help get people financing for the homes, which makes them happy when they get their keys and stuff, and it's exhilarating. But at a certain point in time, you realize you kind of plateau and there's not much more you can do with it. So then at that point in time, you either have to build a team, then from the team you get a brokerage, and the truth of the matter is that route does not excite me. In fact, to be honest, I'm actually even tired of the sales portion of it.
Oh,
So it's sort of the evolution part. But what I do enjoy, which is similar to what I did in my marketing business, but a little bit on a different side of it, I do enjoy helping people and educating them and then helping them get to the next level. And, seeing people build their businesses
wow.
and helping them with their strategies and helping them like with their systems, that excites me. And I love to speak. I mean, sometimes I talk too much. So so I figured this is a perfect opportunity. It gives me that ability to talk too much and talk in a way that it becomes valuable because I'm passing out valuable information, and it gives me
Mhm.
the opportunity to be able to still help people build their business.
Awesome, awesome. And so just as John is that piece that you're more passionate about, your brainchild of offering these solutions to entrepreneurs. So what motivated you and how do you basically address the challenges that many business owners face today?
Well, that's the thing, right? What motivated me was basically, it's just, like I said, it was evolution, right? It's got
Okay.
to the point that I was helping people for free. And not that that was a problem, but I found that I was more happy helping them, even though I wasn't getting paid, than I was doing my actual job.
Mhm.
So it was one of those things that how do you take what you like and move on, like or move forward with it, not on. And this was sort of one of the opportunities. Now, how I help is I help people. I basically look at what they're doing today,
Okay.
analyze what they're doing today, and come up with systems, to see what they're utilizing, what they're not utilizing. And then I come up with my suggestions and my systems and stuff. And sometimes, as a portion of my service, is that sometimes all people want is help setting up their podcast, as an example. And if
Mhm.
that's just basically how do I get my name out there using a podcast, I can help people with that as well. So not everybody wants the full service. It all depends on what stage of their business they're at, what their budget is, what their outlook is. Because sometimes
Right.
people have a good system that's working and they're just early stages. Like if you have something that's working, you're picking up every single day. Yeah, you could pour gasoline on it, but your budget may not allow it, and you may be at a good growth potential that you may not need to do that. There is a such thing as overexpanding or expanding too quickly. So
That's true.
sometimes people just need little portions. And again, how do you get your brand out there? Well, I like to use podcasts to build my brand, and I can help people do that because I've done that already.
So with building brands with podcasts, what would you tell a person who's built in the process of building a brand of how consistent do they need to be with the podcast? Do they need to be doing podcasts weekly? Do they need to be doing it monthly, or how many times a week or times a month would you recommend?
At the end of the day, you can do it as many times as you want as long as you're
Mhm.
consistent. Like, don't go every week. Say, I'm going to do 5 days a week. Then one day you do 5 days a week. The next week you do 3 days a week. Then you do one day and then you skip a week. You skip 2 weeks. That's terrible because eventually you program people to go looking for you. And by not being consistent, they go to find you and it's not there. Two, three
Right.
times that they don't find you, they stop looking. And sometimes they stop looking after the first, but you can't worry about those ones because those ones are just people being finicky and they're not really loyal, so it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Eventually they'll come back when they feel like it. But the ones that, do two, three times and leave, those were your tribe that you forced to leave. Right. And those tribe, because they're coming back two, three times because they believe in what you're doing. And that's why they're coming back. And you don't want to lose those ones. So consistency matters. If you can't commit to, ideally, I would say you want to try to be once a week. But if you can't commit to once a week regularly without skipping a beat, start off once a month. You can always upgrade, you just can't downgrade.
Right.
So it's easier to say we start off, just to make sure it's something you promote and say, hey, our podcast comes out on the first Wednesday of every month. So everybody knows once a month on the Wednesday, you're going to be there. Never skip a beat.
Okay. So, we know that you have your own podcast. What kind of topics do you normally cover on that podcast?
Yeah, my podcast has actually evolved. I used to talk solely about real estate. And
Okay.
aside from getting bored of just talking about that and then repeating myself, I like talking about it in terms of the investment purpose, but I
Hmm.
didn't really want to talk about it as a realtor version. So what I try to do is expand because what interests me, and this is what I come down to now, and this is where it's evolving again, and where my main focus is entrepreneurship, leadership, personal development, and where I incorporate the real estate is on the investment portfolio, investment side. I mean, so I
Okay.
like to talk about investing and what people can do. Hey, you build your life, you build your tribe, you build your business. And what do I do with the income once it comes in? Well, here's how I can help you invest.
I think that's amazing. It's kind of what we do here at Wealthish Talks, but for us, we have like the pillars. So I have pillar conversations. We talk about business, of course, from startup to scale. We talk about personal development. We also talk about the financial side of business, and also like self-care and mental health, because on as an entrepreneur, mental health is essential for many of us. Um, so I love the topics that you are covering on your podcast, and I think that your platform should be very helpful to your followers and your listeners, as well as the listeners that we have here with Wealthish Talks. And your passion for helping people is very clear and evident. So, how do you approach assisting individuals in achieving impactful results, both in business and in their personal lives?
Let's get clarity on what do you mean by how do I approach it? Like, let,
So, so you build your brand through basically how you housing your podcast, and those persons they follow the podcast. But after following the podcast, like, is there like a program or something you do with working with them, or you just constantly provide content?
well, the way I believe in it, I have a system. I believe in abundance.
Okay.
And where I'm going with this in that abundance, I believe you give away all your knowledge for free.
Hmm.
Because let's be honest, you can tell people to do whatever you want. And they can watch it all on YouTube. They can listen to it on your podcast, and it's all there. But 99% of the people are not going to do it.
Right.
And with that being said, sometimes people need that accountability. And the way I work is that I rely on my brand, right? I've been in it long enough that I've got to a point where I can go to the grocery store and people recognize me. So it's like, again, I'm like 4 years into this now. I mean, full episodes, I have 253 or four that's been published. I've got like another 20 in the vault that hasn't been released as I go. Cause I'm at the point now I'm doing two a week. I used to do one.
Hmm.
And then if you include my what I call my Minute Mondays, which is sort of my motivational 1 to 2 minute clips, and if it's just to inspire people and just giving daily truths or whatever, except this them weekly. If you
Okay.
include that and you include what I used to do was live Q&As, which I'm going to start doing again. We took a break on that one, But when you include the live Q&A, I've got almost 500 episodes. So it's really been there. The consistency has been there as well. So yeah, the information is out there, but a lot of times I get people inboxing me wanting to work with me one by one, or I'll bump into somebody, whether it's at the brokerage, whether it's out in the street or whatever, and somebody will ask for stuff. And then, generally, if it's just a tip or two, I give it to them. And then sometimes I say, hey, is there any way to work with you a little bit more? Right. So I'd like that extra help, or I'll offer it. And then that's really how I build it up. It's sort of basically keep my brand up, build my reputation, and then people reaching out through me, whether it's through the phone, through DM, through text, through email, whichever, and then we just establish that relationship and build a program for you, customized program for each individual.
Okay, that sounds good. So, and those individuals are basically facing challenges in order for them to reach out to you, and you're dedicated to helping them overcome those challenges. So, from your experience, what are some key challenges that entrepreneurs have in common that you encounter?
Well, a lot of the basic features, like the starting features, it always comes down to nobody really wants to put in the work. And what and what I mean by that is not necessarily that they're not willing to work, but
Mhm.
look, let's be honest. There are all certain things that we like. Like everybody loves to send out an email or a text message, and if we can all close deals by doing that and make billions doing that, well, YouTube would be in very big trouble. But but the reality is that the days of having a message saying 50% off on this, 25% off on that, and having a flood of people at the door where you can just, rack it in, those days are over. Nobody wants to
Right.
hear buy, 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 or sell, sell, sell. They're sick of that message. And even specials are not important anymore, because name a week where something's not on special. Like, it's gotten so common that it's more news when you're saying it's no longer on special than it is to say that it is on special. So that message is dead. Well, what it comes down to now is learning how to build relationships, because people want
Mhm.
to deal with people they know, like, and trust. And building that relationship, that comes with a lot of work and a lot
Right.
of follow up, and a lot of you know tailored tailored like communications. Like, you should have a touch point depending on the business you're in, but let's use real estate as an example. In real estate, you should have a touch point of at least 26, contact points per customer per year. Now, that sounds like a lot. And when I say 26, I don't necessarily mean that you're calling them every second week. Like, if you have a newsletter, that going out is a touch point. Direct message on Facebook, that's a touch point. Whether they see your video, they comment or like, and you just reply, that's a touch point. A text message is a touch point. Holidays come in, you want to, usually give out a box of chocolates to your past clients. That's still a touch point. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like sending out a card, that's a touch point. The point is, they should hear from you at least twice a month, every month, whether it's indirect contact or direct contact. But a lot of times, the extra steps that are taking people to want to do, and you kind of have to plant it in their minds that they have to do it. And at the same time, what's the one thing people don't want to do? Podcast started off as audio. Why? Aside from the fact that people listen to it in the car and they're not going to watch a video while they're driving, aside from that, it was just the way it was done. But what's become popular now? Video. What's the one
Mhm.
thing people do not want to do? Get on camera. What do they say? I'm not an actor. I'm not an actress. I'm not on TV. I don't need to be on video. And people are shy and they're nervous, right? It's sometimes they hear, oh, yeah, I just don't like the way I sound, or I don't like the way I look. Well, I got news for you. That's what people see and hear. Whether you like it or not, that's what they're seeing. Just because you don't see it or hear it doesn't mean it's not going out there. So it's sort of like, you got to get over it. Like the reality of it is that most people don't care. You care more about what people think of you than what they think of you, because they're busy with their own problems. They're not paying attention to you. And that's what it boils down to. So sometimes it's coming up with those steps
Mm.
to remind them that they have to keep in contact, and having a game plan. Like, I believe in scheduling. You have to time block. I believe in that 100%. We call it income producing activities, IPAs. And you should have at least 2 hours a day set aside, time blocked, phones off, everything's off. I mean, other than the people you're talking to, and you focus on those activities.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be a lot. 2 hours a day can work miracles, but you have to put in the work.
That's true. And I totally agree. You really just shared a lot of different nuggets to the audience. So I want to kind of recap. So just in case they missed something that um that you just shared, and I think it's very important. The first, working my way back, the first is the IPA. I call it deep work. I personally set aside 4 hours a day for that, where my phone is turned off, no one can bug me. I have even my team knows and Slack, hey, I'm not available to you guys until 10 a.m. And then they know that even within that time frame, after I do my morning huddle with them, I'm going to be unavailable until another time. And that kind of helps that process. So making sure you're actually setting that time aside to do the work is essential. Another thing that I love that you shared was the touch points. Some people even say that within 1 month, you should at least have a minimum of 7 touch points just to keep that awareness of your brand in front of someone. So plan, and then you also hit a excellent example with planning, because planning is essential. Many people feel that with social media, oh, I just need to do a video, post a video, and don't do nothing else, and just randomly posting things. But you need to plan it with a strategy or plan it with a purpose. And that's what I'm learning, that a lot of entrepreneurs are actually lacking of a plan of purpose, where it comes and play with what they're sharing. And that's why they're not being successful, because they're not having the touch points, they're not doing things with strategy and planning, and then they're not doing the work. So I totally agree with the nuggets that you just shared.
Thank you. Actually, I have a couple more if you want to hear them.
Yes, let's talk about it.
Yeah. The other thing is that too many people are trying to do everything for everybody. And
Mm,
it's because they're scared. Because if I only, I'm going to use real estate because I'm obviously in the real estate business. So I'm going to
mhm,
keep hammering that industry. And prime example, too many people want to be everything for everybody. I deal with everybody anywhere in Ontario. I can go to Toronto. I can go in Hamilton. I can go to Niagara Falls. I can go to Guelph. I can go to Windsor. Hey, I'll even refer people to somebody out in Florida, right? I mean, and I'm not even in there, right? So it's like, at what point in time, where do you work? So that becomes too broad, and and when you're trying to be everything for everybody, you end up being nothing for nobody.
mm,
So you're much better off to have your value proposition represent a small niche area. Like prime example, mine is going to be individuals or families that are looking to purchase in the Halton or Hamilton region, that are looking to either get into their single family home or into their first investment property. And that's
okay.
who I cater to. Now, it sounds like there's a lot, and there is a lot of business just in that small section. But who do I cater to? Individuals and couples looking to buy a family home or their first investment property. Does that mean if somebody wants a 12plex or something like that, I won't help them? No, it doesn't
Right.
mean that. If somebody wants a condo, does that mean I do not help them? No. But it doesn't mean that I can't and that I won't. It just means that my target and most of my work is projected to those people. And you'll find that you'll get more people, even people that you didn't promote, by having the consistent focus and showcasing your expertise by doing
Hmm.
that. Because then people realize, oh, he's the expert there, and then you'll get more people trusting you because you're focused than if you try to do everything for everybody. If I said I'm a marketer, I'm a banker, I'm a finance guy, I'm a car guy, I'm a mechanic, I'm a surgery, I do surgery, all that. Yeah, I don't know. If you need a surgery, would you call me when those are all my businesses?
Yeah,
Probably
because
not.
you're not showing me what you are expert in, and what people are looking for are those who are experts in a specific field. And I think that's the problem. So yes, that is definitely clear and concise.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I believe that that niche focus, at least to
Hmm.
start off with, you can always expand as you expand your team. You build your team, then you have a big team, and there's individuals in each team that handles different sections, and that's how you
Hmm.
expand. But get good at what you're good at first, become
Hmm.
known for what you're good at first, then worry about the expansion. I forget all this multiple streams of income crap, because if you're making
Mhm.
at $1 out of 10 things, you're just making $10. The guy
Right.
making $1,000 at a time still made more doing one thing.
And that is true. I know, like, when I think it was when I did my rebrand some years ago, one of the mentors that I went through, they took me through the process of the one niche, one funnel, one product mindset, where you only have one specific thing that you focus on for a whole year, so that you can, until you flesh out things, and then the second year you're working on perfecting it, and then the third year, if it's okay to add on, and if you could sustain adding on something else, then branch out and add on another layer. So I definitely agree with that, because when I was trying to do three different things at one time without having a strong foundation in all three of them, it was chaotic and overwhelming. And I was basically dividing myself within all three areas, not giving myself 100% to all of the areas. So I think that is an imperative to do when you're trying to get started, is give whatever you're going to do in the start 100%, and then once you flesh that out, you can give something else 100%.
100%. A lot of people look at this and see the multi-stream and say, "Oh, all the rich people have multi-stream, of income." And that
Mhm.
is true. But if you look at what they do, one is that they started getting their multi-stream when they were already rich.
Right.
So they did their one company, they became the top of their field in their company. Then
Hmm.
they started investing in other things. When they're number one, they just have to maintain. Well, while you
Right.
maintain, it's easy to divide your attention because you're just maintaining. So
That's true.
it's much easier. Second is that when you get to be rich, as the quote I'm using, you have an abundance of income that you can divide and you can build a bigger team. So where you're
Mhm.
weak, you can afford to hire and delegate. So the pressure is not on you. The finances are on you, but not the pressure.
Right.
So and your multiple streams of income comes up with it, is being done by your team, not you yourself. And it's knowing what your strengths are and knowing what your forte is. Like there's three different roles out there in businesses, and this is where I think it's important to learn. Like there's what I
Hmm.
call the visionary, the operator, and the manager. Now there's
Mm.
three different roles, and in the beginning everybody tries to be all three. But really, let's be honest, we're usually really good at one. Like I'm a visionary, and that's my talent, that's my forte. That's why I'm good at deal making, that's why I'm good at ideas. I'm good at coming up with outside the box solutions, because I usually look at stuff way in advance, and I look at it at the end, and then I try to work my way back on how to get there from where I am. um, what I'm not good at is the manager side. I'm a micromanager, I am terrible at it, and that's what I got to delegate. It's because it's one of those things where you expect everybody to do things as good as you do, and that's not reality. And you don't want them to do as good as you do. You want them to do what they're good at. But the
Hmm.
problem is, there's many ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better description. So, meaning there's many ways to get to the same thing. But a lot of times when you're used to doing things your way and you see somebody doing it a different way, you just assume it's wrong. And then what happens is you want to correct them, which just creates chaos. And a lot of times have had people working for me that I tried to micromanage that were actually better at the task than I was. I would have got more done more efficiently if I just minded my business. And sometimes I like a lot of the stuff I learned wasn't from some fancy education, wasn't some fancy course. I learned because I ran into the wall more times than I didn't.
Hmm.
And so it's sort of I did that, I won't do that again. And anyway, so learning where you're becoming self-aware. So I know my weakness is the manager role. I'm the visionary. I'm an okay operator. I can do it. I can be a rainmaker. I can bring, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I'm mediocre at that. When I say mediocre, I mean I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, I'm average. But as a visionary, I would challenge anyone to beat me on that.
Okay. For me, I think I'm more of a balance when it comes to that. Like, I can see the vision and I can administrate the vision, and I can also operate and show people how to do it, but I prefer not to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like,
um
well, this is the thing, right? And reality is, and this is what I hear, is
mhm.
you're trying to justify all the rules. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you're not good at all of them. I'm not saying you can't be good at all of them, but there's one that you're much stronger at, and
Yeah,
it's hard
no,
to let go.
so what I'm saying is I'm much stronger in the first two categories,
Got it.
but for me, I can definitely do it and operate it, and I can do it and give it 100% and get it done. But for me, it'll just be a headache where I just won't like it. So I would prefer to just outsource it to someone else to have it done properly. Because like if it's something I'm not passionate about doing, then I kind of like drag my feet on it, or I make excuses of why I don't want to do it right now versus doing it, getting it done, and moving to the next task. So that's why for me, when it comes to that aspect, I would rather go through the process of doing like a SOP of me doing it and sharing the SOP to my team. And then if they see a different way to get it done quicker, better, or however, then I just let them let me know their feedback and move forward. But I can do it. I don't have the aspirations to do it. So I think that's the aspect of it from that for me personally, because yeah, if it's something I'm not passionate about, I'll go through the process of doing it, but I have gotten to a point where the older I get, if it's something that I feel is gonna take away my peace and I can't give it 100%, I would rather outsource it.
Makes sense, right? Focus on what you're great at and delegate the rest.
Yeah. So yeah, I have to be passionate about it to continue to kind of do it. If I'm not passionate about it, it gets outsourced.
Which brings up my last point
Mhm.
about what I was saying. I remember the second one that I was kind of forgot for a second. All
Yeah.
right. So this is another thing that people, it comes to delegation, and this is what it's important. Now, where when you decide to delegate or not delegate
Mhm.
is simple. You take a look at your job, take a look at the average income out there, and just say that average income is just say $75 an hour as an
Mhm.
example. So the average person in your position creating that job makes 75 bucks an hour. So what happens is when you have a job that gets presented, something that needs to be done for the company,
Mhm.
and if you can get someone for $15 an hour to do that job, then reality is you have no business doing it. I know a lot of people say, well, I have the time, but no, because if you spend that time working to create more sales, you're making sales at that $75 an hour, as we talked about. So are you better off to do something that you can pay someone 15 bucks an hour for 2 hours? Or are you better off to go out there and get more business that'll pay you $75 an hour? It
Right.
sounds painful, and it's obviously a long-term strategy, but the reality is the more time you spend on that $15 an hour job, the more distracted you are, the less you're out there working doing the $75 an hour job.
I definitely agree with that process because I do every week I do like a quadrant of a to do, to outsource, or to just remove completely from my list and not do it. Just to make sure that I'm not wasting time on things that I shouldn't be spending energy in. And I think sometimes we get distracted by this shiny object syndrome of trying to do and pull in things from all these different areas that can really impact our business. And I know in business, like there is an ever evolving landscape, and innovation is, of course, very crucial, especially with social media nowadays. So, are there any innovative strategies that you would recommend for entrepreneurs to stay ahead of the curve or to kind of adapt to the changing market conditions?
Well, reality is that I think too many people today are trying to
Mhm.
reinvent the wheel. And reality is, if you become the best at what's currently out there, you'll always remain the best. Now, where it comes to innovation is sometimes there's different platforms. Like prime example, once upon a time, Facebook was for people that were basically 13 to 20, even though they said you got to be 18 to be on there. We obviously knew that wasn't the case. So,
That's true.
well, but the point is that when parents got on there, kids didn't want to be there anymore. So they moved to
Mhm.
Instagram. Now, where I'm going with this is that not all platforms that come out is going to be a success. A lot of them are going to be failures. Now, I would not give up doing what's working, and spend the time on what's not proven. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity, there's nothing wrong with testing new platforms, testing new
Mhm.
options. But I would not do that in lieu of what's working for you.
Right.
So, and
So,
in terms of, go ahead.
no, you were saying so. Don't basically don't deter what's working just to go towards something that's new and trending.
Right, exactly. It goes back to the shiny object syndrome. A lot of
Okay.
times things can seem great, and it seems like you're going to get ahead of everybody. But let's be honest, 90 something percent of the stuff that comes out will fail, and you just jump ship and give up on what's working for something that had very minimal chance of working. So if you can add it and it's not taken away from your current productivity, add it. If
Hmm.
not, hey, just follow the trend. Wait for it to catch on. I mean, catch on in the early stages. Don't wait to get onto something when it's almost out. But at the same time, you don't have to be first on the platform. You don't have to be first person to do it.
Hmm.
We'll say, if you're in the top 20, you're pretty safe.
I would agree with that. And then because a great example, I know like Mixer for gamers used to be a hot platform, and then it phased out and blended in with Facebook, and then we had MySpace at one point for everybody to connect with friends and family, and then that just completely disappeared. So platforms are really just a trend, if you would say, of different elements that people come out with. So it's okay to test the trend, but don't put 100% in the trend. But be enough to, if that trend does take off, you have that start to get going and to build off of. And I one of the things I did notice from your bio is that you're deeply, and from talking to you, is that you're deeply into professional growth. So how are you able to balance your own personal growth journey? Like what habits or practices do you prioritize for your own well-being?
Right, absolutely. I believe in everything that I sell. I've had a coach for years.
Mhm.
And so not only do I offer it, I have used the service. I do attend a lot of conferences. I do take notes. I do see what works for others. A lot part of the podcast is not just for the viewers, because sometimes I'm talking, and I'll give you a trick. You know how much preparation I have for each podcast?
How much?
Zero. Right, and I don't recommend this for everybody, because you have to know your strengths.
Right.
I'm a person by default that's very curious, and what happens is I always ask, like when I start my podcast, you can go through all 400 episodes or whatever, and the very first question is the exact same: who you are, what you know, and how you got there. Right,
Hmm.
because what happens is then I get that deep information about the guest, and I get to listen to who they are and what they're doing, where their mindset is, and I try to figure out where their mindset is, and that
Okay.
gets my curiosity. And my curiosity is how I develop my questions. And then I go in from there. And because I'm naturally curious, I always
Hmm.
have questions because I want to know. And then that's how I learn. So sometimes we're talking for the benefit of the listeners, but I'm listening too. So it's like, yeah, you have to be open. And I read about 2 books a month every month, so 24
Okay.
books a year, right? So I also learn from that. So it comes down to scheduling, right? A lot of
Right.
people say, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And the reality is, you have time for everything you want to do. The issue is you're trying to cram so many things, and you're trying to be busy instead of productive. If it's
Mm.
something that isn't productive, I don't do it. I have an accountant. Why? Because I'm not going to enter the bills. I'm not going to do the bookkeeping. I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I never do, and I never have. I'm always that moron who goes to the tax accountant at the end of the year with boxes of receipts. You know what I mean? Like, because I was gonna do it, but obviously that didn't happen.
Right.
So the point is, you got to realize what your strengths are, and do what, instead of trying to, farm out on the busy, and work on the productive.
Mm,
And if you do that, your timetable opens up, because again, it goes back to what we were saying, you delegate. If it goes back, if it costs $20 an hour and I'm making 75, I'm going to delegate it, and that'll be that. Now, scheduling is the most important thing. If you're not in my calendar, we don't have an appointment. I don't care how important it is. That's just the way it is. Every day's planned out, and I'm planned out at a minimum of a week in advance. Now, I know that there's emergency that comes up. I get a call from a family member saying I'm in the hospital. Well, obviously, I'm going to clear that calendar.
right.
But how often does that happen? That's not a daily occurrence. That's not a weekly occurrence. And that might, let's be honest, that might happen 3 or 4 times in her life. Right. So it's not a daily thing. It's not something I'm going to be overly worried about and saying, I got to leave open, some time open because this might happen. You deal with
Yeah.
things, right? You deal with things, right? So, but look, I wake up every morning. I'm up between 5 and 6 a.m. And I have a morning routine. I have my morning coffee, and I have a morning coffee and a bagel. That's how I started off. But I don't just have the bagel and the coffee. And I do it at the local coffee shop, but I read my book, or I listen to my podcast while I'm doing that. And I have about 45 minutes scheduled for that. So I go there, spend my 45 minutes, have my coffee, have my bagel, read my book, go home. From that point in time, I go home. Then, depending, if it's gym day, I'll go home, get changed, go to the gym, work out, come back, shower. 9 a.m. starts, I start my work day. I have that all scheduled. I have my IPA scheduled. My mornings typically is my podcast time. So I usually do my podcast between 10 and 12 each day that I do them, that I record. And so 9 to 10, I'm obviously getting everything ready. I'm obviously, setting up and creating my clips and stuff like that, and posting the clips to Instagram. I schedule everything on my LinkedIn and stuff. A lot of times, if you look at it, it looks like I'm live because I use StreamYard, and it looks like I'm live, but I'm not actually live. So I'm just at, and I do that between 9 and 10. Then 10 o'clock, I'm on my first episode that I'm recording, whatever the day. Comes 12 o'clock ends. That's the end of my podcasting. From 12 to about 1 o'clock, I'll have lunch. Yeah, I take an hour lunch. And then 1 o'clock to, from 1 to 3, that's when I end up doing my errands, running around, doing my deliveries and stuff like that. If I have stuff for clients, and if I have an inspection booked, I do that between those times. So I'll show up at the house and whatever. 3 to
Mhm.
5, I do my IPAs. And then from 5 to 7, I wrap up and plan my next day and just organize my table. And at 7 o'clock, I do whatever I want. I'm on my own time.
I think that's great to have your schedule planned out that way, because I know typically for me, I plan the whole week out on a Sunday,
Yeah.
just to view it from the week out, and all of my stuff for the week is typically planned on Monday through Thursday. So Friday is my day where I just focus on personal development, self care, and all things me. um so if it's anything personal that I need to get done, that's my what I actually have set off for Friday. But Monday through Thursday, all for the business and getting things done, and I have everything time blocked out. And I definitely try to stick to the schedule that I've set aside for that. So I love the process and the habits that you've created, because everybody's not consistent with habits, and everyone doesn't have a routine to really push them forward towards what they're trying to do and accomplish. So I love people
That,
who have that realistic take on, I need to have some type of incentive or habit in place to get things done to be better.
well, the reason why they don't do it is because they have excuses, but the excuses is only for one reason. You're not committed. If you're not going to commit, you're not going to do it. When you
Right.
commit, and to me, an appointment to me is like life and death. You know what I mean? Like, if you make that appointment, you got to follow through. And look, when somebody, I have a pet peeve now We make an appointment with people and then call up, oh, just confirming that we're meeting. It's in the calendar. Why do you need to confirm? If my calendar says at 10 a.m. I'm going to be at the local coffee shop so we can have a 1 hour meeting, I'm going to be there. Unless you hear from me. The only time you'll hear from me is not to confirm that we're going to show up. It's going to be if some emergency happened that I can't make it. That's the only time you'll hear from me. Other than that, it's in the calendar. I'm going to be there.
I definitely get that. And so I know you previously mentioned that you also go to different types of conferences for your learning. What conferences do you attend?
Oof, where do I start? Right. So I've been in different ones. It all depends on what industry I'm focusing on. Like
Okay.
I like the Tony Robbins stuff. I've done his stuff virtually. I've never been in person. Then
Okay.
there's the real estate one that I watch is Jared James Advance,
Okay.
and I've seen the 10x Growth Con with Grant Cardone.
Hmm.
Then yeah, so there's been numerous ones that I've seen. Like it was just, I mean, over the years it's been so many, right? And some have come and gone. There's some that no longer exist, right? So, and again, also the other key thing is here is like a lot of conferences, and you're not going to get a lot of nuggets from every one, but there's always one or
Right.
two nuggets that you get. And the reason why I say it's important to take notes, because sitting somewhere and being there for 3 days, even if it's 4 hours at a time, and you're going in and out and whatever, um, there's going to be stuff you miss or forget. And if you didn't write it down, you don't have notes, you're going to basically all you did is watch a long ass movie, because that's really what it's going to be like, because you're not going to remember any of it. So that's why note taking would be important there. Now, again, not everything everybody says is going to be important to you. You're going to hear some stuff and say, nah, I'm not interested. I don't care. Then fine, discard it. You don't care. But if you hear something, write it that you do care and you do want to implement, write it down.
I
And then
love
again,
it.
what's more important than the conferences, because again, you can become busy watching conferences, and you can watch them on YouTube after the fact too. And you can spend your whole day on YouTube thinking you're being productive because you're watching and you're learning. If you don't implement anything, you might as well not know it, because action speaks louder than words.
True.
I think we've all heard that before. And the reality is, it's not important what you learn, it's important what you use.
Mm.
So, and that's why
Yeah,
I believe note taking is so important.
that's definitely true because I am a big note taker. I keep a notebook with me, and then I have this I do the common book method where I have like categories for stuff that I input in the notebook that are color coded. So I have a pen that has like the four different colors, and I just click the little color down on the side of the pen, and I write the note in that book, and later on at the end of the week I go back and look at the notes that I put in there just so I can reflect on them. And that's what I typically use my Fridays for, is to reflect on ideas and notes that I put in that book, so that if there's something I want to implement, I try to implement or think about whether or not I'm going to implement it into my business. But yes, I love all of the insights and experiences that you shared with us today, and it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Can you also let our listeners know where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me online either on my website at
Okay.
justaskjp.com, or go to Instagram and look up my name at John Papaloni, JohnPapaloni. And you can follow me there as well.
Amazing. So, to all of my wonderful listeners, thank you for tuning into another episode. Remember, wealth is not just financial, it's about the habits we cultivate and the positive changes we make in our lives. Until next time, continue to embrace your purpose, your passion, and your power on this entrepreneur journey.